All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's Equal Times lunchtime panel in the Congress Live studio. Today we have two English language panels based on the issues that have been emerging from our sub-plenaries that have been going on during the course of the Congress. First up, Realising Rights, where we are discussing the Bangladeshi Accord as a model for placing pressure on global production chains. Please make welcome our panel. On my extreme left, UNI General Secretary Phil Jennings. Next to me, General Secretary of the Federation of Trade Unions of Burma, Mong Mong, and to my right, Said Iqbal, who is Chair of KSPI, the Indonesian Metal Workers Union. So let's start off by kicking around the Bangladeshi Accord. Phil, let's start with your reaction to that factory collapse that killed 1,100 workers last year. What was your initial reaction and what did you do about it?
Clearly, sadness at the scale of the tragedy, at the unnecessary loss of life, but above all, a feeling was we had to change the rules of the game. We had been in negotiations with brands for a number of years to have agreements in the supply chain, in the garment factories, which were more of a binding and not of a voluntary nature. Therefore, with Industrial and their General Secretary, Jyrki Reiner, we got together, we worked together. This was a partnership of two global unions, and we said, we're going to change the rules of the game. And that was when the idea of the Accord started. We started from zero. The tragedy was on April 24th, and we put a deadline of May 15th for global brands to sign up to this legally binding accord, which would change the rules of the game. We put a small countdown clock on our websites. We excited the journalists, we excited consumers, we excited our movement, and we built up the pressure to sign by May the 15th. We started from zero, and then by May 15th, we had something like 37 brands signed up. Today, 1 year on, we have 174 brands signed up. We have an agreement which really is of a legally binding nature. We have a team in Bangladesh. We have 110 inspectors. We have already visited 400 factories. It covers 2 million workers. The reports that we make are transparent. They are published. We have access to workplaces. There is no running away from this accord. There is an understanding that when factories need to be improved, that the workers will still be paid. We've had factories which we've said they must close because we will have another Rana Plaza on our hands. And we think that we've saved maybe thousands of lives as a result. So from that anger, that sadness, that tension, those tears of despair for those poor people who had lost their lives, the essence was, we're going to change the rules of the game in the supply chain forever, and we were going to make a new reality. 2 years' time, the ILO has as its theme, supply chain management. This is not going to go away, and we're going to keep up the pressure, mobilize people worldwide to make sure that there's no more Rana Plazas on this planet.
What sort of pushback have you found from those at the top of the corporate supply chain? Has there been an attempt to confine the process to Bangladesh? I also know that there is 2 accords or 2 protocols in place at the moment.
Look, employers know about divide and rule.
Yeah.
So when you put a corporate monster like Walmart into the picture, they got together with some of their corporate friends, including Gap, that they were going to build their own alliance, which was a simple repetition of what happened in the past, i.e. voluntary, they decide the terms of reference, not any compulsion to publish. So there was clearly pushback on the corporate side, and there was anxiety on our side. Could we build the momentum? So with the help of the ITUC, with the help of NGOs, we're working hand in glove with the Clean Clothes campaign. Without them, this wouldn't have been possible either. National centres also raising their voices. Political parties raising their voices. We built the pressure. But divide and rule in the corporate community is there. But we've managed to get 174 companies signed up for this accord. Clearly, the legal affairs departments of these businesses were creating a great deal of anxiety with their chief executives because there's a commitment to repair the factories, that they're going to take responsibility, that when the reports are published, that they will repair. that they will pay the workers when they're not working. So clearly the lawyers of K Street, as we call them in Washington, D.C., had something to say. And my message to the CEOs was, this is a moral question. This is an issue for humanity. Kick the lawyers out of the room and let's make a responsible, lasting solution to this problem. Walmart, we haven't changed their minds, but who's surprised about that?
I'll bring you into the conversation, Said. Look, there was a period when the plight of workers in Indonesia, particularly around the production of footwear, was also attracting global attention, and there was a freedom of association protocol signed in your country in 2011. Has that protocol been successful in protecting workers' rights? And I guess the other follow-up question is, what can we learn in Bangladesh from the experience in Indonesia?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. The problem in the underdeveloping countries, all in the world, the government only running, take the economic growth, GDP, increasing GDP, and the others numbers of the macroeconomic. But the other side, the government and employer at developing country don't care about the welfare, social protection, and etc. and etc. So it means you can look when the government getting the economic growth increasing, GDP increasing, the other side, the Gini ratio very lot of gap. For example, in Indonesia, #1, the economic growth in the world after the Chinese, the last years. The Gini ratio each year increasing. The last year 0.39 and this year 0.41. It means only middle class getting the benefit of the economic growth and GDP increasing. But no more, no meaning for the labor, the middle low class. So we need the protection and balancing power and reduce the gap of the Gini ratio. So for example, in Indonesia also, you can look one piece Nike shoes, price of the Nike shoes equal 1 month's salary for the labor. One piece Gulf H&M price similar 1 month's salary of the labor. And extremely, as example, one Toyota car price equal 10 years salary average the national minimum wage in Indonesia. I think same in the other underdeveloping countries. So the problem is no more benefit for the labor. So we need equality, we need justice, and we need human being. Yes, we need investment comes to the country, especially in the developing country. But the other side, we need welfare. So, for example, and last
so
comment,
sorry, go on.
In Indonesia, yes, we have the freedom association at the labor-intensive garments, shoes, and etc. But the fact, government collusion with the employer control the trade union movement in the plant level. And some elites of the trade union at the labor-intensive corrupt. This is problem. So we can get the freedom association real in the field in Indonesia. For example, you can look, one piece Nike shoes equal 1 month's salary for the labor. Why? This is since 15 August 20.
Has the protocol changed things at all, or is it just something that makes Western consumers feel good?
All. This problem about the government protect the labor intensive at the underdeveloping countries, because they said, the government said, if wages is increasing is very high, the labor intensive outside to the other countries like Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, and etc.
So they use that as a threat against you to organize?
Yes, of course.
Okay, Mong, this idea of external pressure on a country is nothing new to you. You spent 24 years in exile from your country during the time you were instrumental in pushing for ILO sanctions against the junta for their use of forced labour. How did you go about building international support for those sanctions, and were they ultimately effective?
Well, I would say it was pretty simple. We went to the international trade unions, now called GOVs. We first started with the international IUF. Then we, like Philip and everybody sat down and listened to us. But we needed to have the facts on the ground. We need to have the facts so that, yes, there was forced labor being done, there was child soldiers being done, there was child labor being done, and then we put all these documents together through the ITUC. At the time it was ICFTU. Then we try to go through the, let's say, the ILO mechanism. It's just simply just being, you got to be a little bit crazy, and you got to be a little bit patient, because you don't see things change day to day. It takes time, and you have to walk through all these legal issues. But that was the only thing we had. So I would say that this is what, although the trade unions would be impatient because it takes time. It took us 24 years to come for the, let's say, the regime to accept the fact that there is forced labor, there is child soldiers, and that they wanted to have help to change how to go about things. So I think this is just being consistent, but you have to have the facts together, and I think if the facts are correct, then you have the international supporting, but the initial issues were done and initiated by the international trade unions.
And you have said to me that the ILO sanctions were seen as quite an important pressure point over the past decade, yeah?
It's not quite an important issue. It was the issue at the implementation of the Article 33 after the ILO, let's say, Commission of Inquiry, which was initiated by ITUC, was the issue that started the snowball impact on companies withdrawing from the country, from governments working with the regime. So I would say that the implementing of the Article 33, which actually doesn't have the word sanctions. It was saying that if you are working with this regime, then you are going to be involved with child soldiers, forced labor, and that you should not be doing that. That was the things. There was never a word on this thing, actually, and sanctions on this thing. But the passing of Article 33 and the facts that were provided through the Commission of Inquiry was what really started the snowball impact. And that is how I would say the sanctions were picked up by the governments and the international institutes.
So you're now in the process of building a union movement from the ground up in your country. Are there legal protections for collective bargaining and a minimum wage being discussed as part of that new legal framework?
Well, we have 87 in place. There is freedom of association, but it doesn't guarantee that there is collective bargaining there. As a country, we haven't signed on to this collective bargaining convention, and it needs to be done. It is being discussed, but then because we haven't had any independent trade unions, or we haven't had any kind of agreement in the country for the last 40 years, it's going to take some time that we get to the level of collective bargaining agreements. So yes, there are unions that can be formed on the ground level. There are restrictions to formation of structures to the federal level, to the federation levels, but then there is no guarantee on paper or the concept that there needs to be CBA. So we still have to walk a long ways to go.
And tell me, is the political system developing so that there are politicians who are advocates of unions and workers within Burma or Myanmar?
Well, as a country, we have been closed for about, let's say, 40, 50 years. Politicians even have some sort of a difficulty in identifying between the ITUC and the ILO and the GOVs. When they get to these workers' issues, they always say, well, go to the ILO, and we have to explain, no, it's not the ILO, it's a trade union issue. We have to go according to the decent work agenda and so forth and things like that. So the differentiation for the politicians is a little bit still difficult. There are politicians, individuals, who have been, let's say, activists in their formal, let's say, for the last 30 years and try to work on this issue. So we still have also a very big handicap in getting political support from the parliamentarians.
Said, the legal framework for labour rights in Indonesia is a live issue. I saw you were coming out last week endorsing one of the presidential candidates on the basis of a very pro-worker agenda.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is not only just a little times, not only request to the new candidate of the president in Indonesia, but we held since 5 years ago, yeah, because in the labor intensive we have inequality for the labor, massive using of the precarious work, and then low wages policies, and then limited social security, especially for the health insurance and pension system. So the last time we make the strategy first against the low wages, and we win. Last years we take increasing minimum wage, 2013, 40 until 70% increasing minimum wage. Yes, employer and government is very angry. We don't care, because since 15 years ago, they take the full property for the labor. And the last 2014, we getting increasing minimum wage, 25 until 30% increasing minimum wage. And now, 2014, all people getting the health insurance for long lifetimes and unlimited costs. And pension system 2015 become the mandatory. All workers getting the pension system. And the last, for last year's, government announced the new regulation about the precarious work. Only company use 5 various industry and others cannot. It means 16 million precarious work change become the permanent workers and direct contract, but not passed through by agent. This is win. It means we keep our achievement for the next future, and this time is critical point for us because the election for the president. We already settlement the new candidate, the strong candidate president. We request 10 demands. Who is 10 demand? What is the 10 demand? First, against the low wages, we want change item of KRM, number of item KHL, standard living cost. Now 60 item KHL, increase become 84 item. It means increasing minimum wage for next year, 2015, 60%. This is very incredible strategy.
This is,
and also implementation. Yes,
spectacular.
And all outsourcing workers reduce precarious work, including various industry. Employers said, ask to me, and the new candidate president, how about if outsourcing and precarious erased to the all? You can use the contract workers direct to the company, not pass through the agent. This is flexibility for you. We reduce all the outsourcing workers. The new president agree. We sign the agreement. Yeah, and then implementation pension system, health insurance, transportation public, and also reduce price of the housing, because in Indonesia housing is very, very expensive, in also public transportation. So the 10 demands is very, very incredible point for next future and the labor if our candidate president become the winner of the president.
And what's our chances of success there?
Yeah, thank you.
Phil, what we're hearing here is that legal frameworks are really important in the developing world, yeah?
Yes. Well, indeed, but what the message that's coming across in both the cases is that we can win, that we can mobilize, and that the trade union movement and all our friends in the NGO community are key actors, and therefore we have this sense that we can get things done, and that we are all responding. Leadership can be defined as how do you respond to the anxiety of the times. The anxiety of the times are clearly joblessness, inequality, and that people are not being included in economic growth. They are not being included. There's no sense of including you. So we have to mobilize, and we can win. And therefore, we have to dream and dream big and have a vision, and a vision with a plan. And a plan needs an action, and it needs resources. And then we have to be aligned. And we can change this world. Inequality now, #1 agenda at the OECD. Who would have thought this? Their own reports have confirmed that we are growing unequal. We are growing apart. That our economies are divided. Proven, case proven. The share of wages is in historic decline. The share of wages is in an historic increase. Even Barack Obama is now saying the workers of America need a pay rise. His problem is he's asked for the employers to pay it. We want a seat at the table to negotiate this. We changed the discussion on the debt crisis, the Jubilee debt campaign. When we said cancel the debt, drop the debt, we were mocked. We were considered economically incoherent and unrealistic. We never gave up. The discussion about tax havens today, right at the top of the G20 agenda. How do we close down those tax havens, which are there for the benefit of a corrupt corporate community and those at the top? We're going to do the same with the supply chain. We have to do more on climate change. The point is, we can mobilize, we have the vision, we are not living in the past, we're living in the now, and we can change this world. And all the examples we're getting from this table is to show we can win.
So I'll put this to you then. What is the way to take it the next step? Because you're saying we're winning, and that's great, but I think we'd all agree we're not running at full capacity either. Where are the next steps?
We have to put, the next steps with respect to inequality, for example, we will not solve inequality without an improvement in labor rights. We will not solve inequality without closing down those tax havens. So we have to, the campaign I would like to see would be about the role of unions having a say on pay and a seat at the table, and the role of collective bargaining to give workers a voice. Workers a voice in the determination of their income, and workers a voice in ensuring that the benefits of the business are distributed fairly amongst them. So inequality and collective bargaining is clear. Supply chain, the conference in 2016, we've got to do some work. We will come up with a movement. We will spread this amongst the labor movement that by the time we get to 2016, the voices will be so strong that we will be mobilizing globally, regionally, and locally to ensure that the Rana Plaza, from that tragedy, we can mobilize the world to improve the condition. But I would say we have a role in unions. The politicians like to leave us out of the picture. You can't get them, even our friends on the left. You mentioned collective bargaining, and it's this. They have to rediscover the language of fairness of income distribution and the role that unions play.
Mong Mong, this is a slightly different Congress for you because since the last one, you're no longer lobbying to get support to have unions recognised. You're now working on strategies to grow unions in your country. And I know one of the issues is to the extent that as Myanmar opens up, you become the next low labour pool for global retailers. Is that a live debate in your movement and in your country? And do things like a production chain strategy starting at the point where the capital is coming into the country make sense to you?
Since the Rana collapse, I would say all the retailers are coming in now. The Gap, HMS, and all the BSR, all the people have come to Burma. Some are starting to source from Burma. They have come to talk to us. They have tried to set up certain papers which we haven't signed on, which we have said, okay, we have to have a look. So we're working with ITUC and the respective sectors. Well, these are coming in now. But having seen all those happen in Bangladesh, in other countries, in around the region, we will try our best so that it doesn't happen to our country. We've seen countries where investment came in, took all what they could, and then they fled and left the country in a very bad situation. And we will not let that happen. We have our friends. I would say that we do have some time to prevent this exploitation taking place. So, and also we to give credit to the government. They are trying to put in laws on, let's say, minimum wage, social protection, and so all these things. And all these things, they are allowing space for the newly formed unions to participate. So it is time that we also need support, not to turn the regime around, but see whether we can make our country into a role model where we have the social, we have dialogue partners at the table right from the beginning, because we are starting from ground zero. Investment, zero. Laws, zero. And trade union, zero. Let's say we all start together, and if we are, as trade unions, are able to deliver on what we have learned from the international community and what's happened, and if we are able to walk within the system to have the laws passed, to have people in parliament educated, and to have our, let's say, leaders in the trade union movement develop to a level where they can understand what the international investment is talking about, I do believe that we do have a chance of making out equality and not going into this exploited country status.
And Saeed, is there a sense of optimism in your labour movement in your country? Is there a sense that you are moving in the right direction?
Yeah, in our strategy in Indonesia, the trade union movement make two strategies. First, from factory go to the public. Yes, in the factory, you can negotiate with the management, make the collective labor agreement. It's clear. And after that, go to the public issue about the social security reform, about the against the precarious work, about the against the low wages. We need the new strategy. And the second strategy we call the concept lobby and take action. Yes, first we make the concept. For example, what do you thinking from the labor about the social security reform? We make the concept. What do you think they're thinking about the increasing minimum wage? We make the concept. And after that, we go to the lobby, negotiate to the parliament, government, employer association, and others. And after that, if government, employer association don't adopt, don't receive is our concept, we take the action. The last May Day, less than 1 million labor joined the May Day from the KSPI. And we take action to national strike. The 2 years ago and the last years, the national strike, more than 2 million labor joined. And all labor watch the television. And labor said, yes, we need the trade union because trade union can change our destiny. Don't dreams, government and employer come to you, to labor, change your destiny. You should be struggle yourself. Now, the labor movement in Indonesia become important for the labor. Not only labor, government and employer association also need the trade union, especially KSPI. So it means you can do it. Never give up. Stand up, because your destiny cannot change from the government or employer association. This is our principle when we struggle the change of the destiny for the labor.
Fantastic, and we'll all be watching the presidential elections and hoping your candidate triumphs.
Of course, we
Look,
hope.
that's, I don't know if you want a quick sum up, Phil, we're about out of time.
I would say we're at the ITUC Congress. It's been a remarkable week. I think it's been a transforming week for global labor. We have good, strong leadership. We have a very clear agenda about where we want to go. I'm a global union, but I'm part of this family. We work closer together than we've ever worked before. And I'm so pleased to see union growth on the agenda. Now, this was not habitually an area where a global center would engage itself. This was Mong Mong's job. This is Asif Iqbal's job. We also now think it's our responsibility to make sure that everyone is trying to grow their unions. So in our organization, Uni Global Union, we adopted a strategy of breaking through. We established an organizing fund. We have organizing activities across the planet, but the commitment to union growth, saying that we are going to grow, that we are fed up with a defeatist talk that we no longer have a role in the labor market and so forth. This Congress is going to commit itself to grow to 20 million. You will find people making pledges and commitments. And I can assure you that all of us will be ensuring that those pledges and promises are realized in practice. A union growth agenda is essential. And at last, we're connecting the dots, national, regional, global, sectoral, multinationals. A wave, an organizing wave, is growing and it's coming.
And given that that's our next panel, that's a great intro for that as well. But for now, thank you to Phil, Mong, and Saeed. You've been a great panel, and thank you very much for being with us. Cheers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'd like to thank the audience for their enthusiastic applause, and we hope we haven't disturbed your lunch too much. Bon appetit.